Welcome to Broken But Not Beaten, a podcast dedicated to exploring the mental journeys athletes face when recovering from sports injuries. In this series, we dive into emotional responses, identity struggles, and practical strategies to help athletes not only heal physically, but mentally. Most people focus solely on the physical side of injury, bones, ligaments, or muscles, but the mental side is just as powerful. Injuries don't just take you off the court, they can affect your confidence, disrupt routines, and even shake your sense of self. Today, we'll explore what research says about these psychological effects, and I'll also share parts of my experience with you. To start, I'll share my experience as an athlete who had a sports related injury. I play volleyball, and earlier last year I was injured during a tournament. I went to receive a ball and I fell, hitting my knee on the ground pretty hard. I felt a pop, and everyone basically knew that something was wrong. I stayed on the ground, clutching my knee, but I knew I had to get up to prove to myself that that moment wouldn't undo years of work. Pushing the bad thoughts aside, I stood up with tears welling in my eyes. We lost that game, and it was the last game I played in that tournament. But when I experienced patellar subluxation, it was physically painful, and I wasn't prepared for the mental challenges to come with it. Everyday tasks felt harder, my training schedules disappeared, and I began questioning my identity. Who am I without volleyball? Research shows that many athletes go through similar emotions. Injury isn't just physical, it changes the way we see ourselves. Looking back, my experience wasn't just personal, it reflected patterns researchers have been studying for years. Academic studies show that sports injuries have a significant psychological impact. For example, a narrative review found that injuries can affect young athletes' self-confidence, emotional well-being, and personal identity. This often leads to fear of re-injury, skill loss, anxiety, depression, and frustration, creating an identity crisis as athletes lose part of themselves tied to being active in sports. Social isolation and low self-worth are also common, highlighting the need for stronger support systems during recovery. Similarly, a scoping review from Springer Link showed that athletes often experience anxiety, frustration, and depressive feelings during rehabilitation. Post-injury mental distress, such as fear and anxiety, can slow rehabilitation and prolong recovery. According to Kaur, Kumar, and Partap, effective rehabilitation requires collaboration between physiotherapists, medical professionals, and sports psychologists. Traditional rehab protocols focus mainly on physical recovery, strength training, healing, and neuromuscular re-education, while modern approaches also integrate mental support and address apprehensions, motivation, and compliance with rehab programs. One common psychological response is kinesiophobia, or the fear of re-injury. This is an excessive fear of physical movement due to the anticipating fear or repeating of an injury. Kinesiophobia is linked to the increased anxiety or reduced confidence and avoidant behaviors which can slow rehabilitation and reduce muscle strength or range of motion. Athletes returning to play also face performance pressures and isolation from teammates, creating ongoing stress during recovery. Some effective coping strategies include gradual exposure therapy and confidence building exercises, which gradually reinduce movements in a controlled way to reduce fear. Mental skills training, such as relaxation exercises and mindfulness to improve emotional regulation and reduce anxiety. Reframing identity, focusing on new goals and personal growth during recovery to see oneself beyond just athletic roles. Behavior-focused tasks, including structured goal setting, cognitive restructuring, and social support to improve emotional adjustments. And the last one is open emotional communication with coaches, peers, and therapists to rebuild resilience and connection. Research also highlights the importance of social and contextual factors. Athletes who feel involved in recovery decisions and supported socially often experience better mental and emotional outcomes. Tailored psychological interviews such as guided imagery, relaxation, and cognitive behavioral approaches help athletes manage stress and remain engaged during recovery. Recognizing three main phases of injury: initial shock and loss, rehabilitation with fluctuation of emotions, and return to play challenges, athletes help set realistic expectations and normalize emotional ups and downs. The interplay between the psychological stressors and rehabilitation shows that fear, frustration, and anxiety can affect daily life and long term performance. Ongoing mental health support, open communication with coaches, and realistic expectations promote resilience and help athletes navigate recovery successfully. In the end, recovering from a sport injury is about more than just healing the body. It's a journey of mental strength, patience, and self discovery. Understanding the emotional and psychological challenges and using effective coping strategies can help athletes emerge not just healed, but stronger, wiser, and ready to face the game again. Thank you for coming to this week's episode of Broken But Not Beaten. See you in the next one.